everybody, and welcome to Album Analysis. Today I'm going to be talking about an album called by V.V. Brown called Traveling Like the Light. And my lead up to how I found out about this artist and this album kind of ties back to the fact that I actually just got back from Des Moines, Iowa, where I saw Slipknot at the Iowa State Fair. And this may seem like a non sequitur, but it actually leads into my story. And I'll start my story with a quote by John Waters, the filmmaker. He was talking about the film Hairspray, and he said that the Motown of 1963 was the only respite from the hit parade of hell of today. I think I paraphrased that slightly, but he definitely used the phrase hit parade of hell. And so I too experienced the hit parade of hell, and this is what happened. Back many moons ago, I was working as a start team associate at Macy's, where you come in the morning and you basically take stuff that has become cheaper in price and you put the new cheaper price on the stuff. That was the job. And the day that I did my orientation for Macy's was the day that Paul Gray from Slipknot passed away. So I did my orientation, and then I came home and then I found out this news, and then I think I had off the next day, and then I started actually working at Macy's the day after that. And this particular Macy's had a radio that played the most god-awful music in the history of the world. Like, it was like the easy listening fifth circle of hell. And it was the worst. But then there was one song, and I was very stressed out, having heard this news and stuff. So I was really not into the god-awful music they were playing. Then there was this one song that came on, and I really liked the song. And it was like that one bright spot in this, like, deluge of awful, bad music. And that song turned out to be Crazy Amazing by V.V. Brown, which is on this album, Traveling Like the Light. So I recently sought out like the whole album to listen to the whole album. So I'm relatively new to having heard it, but I've listened to it a few times now. And so I wanted to kind of just go in and talk a little bit about this album and this artist who is not that well known. She had like a few big hits back when this album came out, but she's come up with more albums since then. And I definitely want to tackle them later when I get, more familiar with those albums as well. So, this album, Traveling Like the Light, has an overarching theme of the kind of highs and lows of love. I read that this was written after she had a relationship that didn't end well with someone. And you can definitely tell that with the songs, because there's a general sort of mismatch between the lyrics and the music, where there's often very, very upbeat music, but kind of like cynical lyrics. And so it kind of combines that sort of idea of being like excited about being in love, but then also realizing in some, back corner of your mind that it's not going to work out like you want it to. And that kind of seems like what sort of led her to put together this album. So, starting with the first song is called Quick Fix. And this is, like I said, a very upbeat song. And it's about that, she wants a more in-depth relationship, and she's not looking for something that's kind of like casual and it's going to be over quickly. And that's basically kind of what that song is about. So it sort of starts with a very enthusiastic kind of pumping beat, and we get kind of introduced to her in a way, since this was her first album that really people knew about. And she's an interesting vocalist because she is from England, and you can definitely tell her British accent the way she sings. A lot of British singers kind of leave the British accent behind in a way, but she really doesn't. You can definitely tell that she's British when she sings. So that's the first song. I can't really think of anything else to say about that particular song at the moment, but I may double back to it later. But the first one's Quick Fix. The second song is called Game Over, and it's also got a similar sort of like very up-tempo musical accompaniment while having kind of, this is sort of the one that definitely has some very like cynical lyrics that she's sort of singing about kind of knowing where everything is going to lead, and that it's, in a way, it's a game. Hence the title Game Over, and that she kind of knows where it's going to lead and that she's sort of been there before, but by the same token she's also kind of caught up in it, and it's almost sort of like the music is sort of guiding her, and kind of she's still going back into some of the same old things even though she kind of has been there before and sort of knows where it's going to lead. So that's definitely a theme of here, of kind of being able to recognize old like patterns and old ideas, and kind of knowing that something's leading to a place that's not great, but that also just sort of the maybe emotional side of someone's brain sort of leading them to still do it because you're caught up in the moment. Then there's Shark in the Water, which if you know V.V. Brown, or even if you don't, you probably know this song, because Shark in the Water was used on the television show Degrassi back in the day, and it was used in the ads, and I believe it was used during the actual show as well. That was after I stopped watching Degrassi, but it was used in Degrassi. And this song is, again, about this sort of mismatch of expectations and wants and the emotional side versus realizing something isn't right. So in this they use a lot of like animal metaphors, because there's like a shark in the water, perhaps signifying something creeping up on the relationship, the negative parts of the relationship. And she also uses the phrase howling at the moon, so this sort of demonstration of maybe alarm, or maybe demonstration of being in the relationship in spite of these sort of creeping doubts. It's an interesting song, and you've probably heard it. You're probably all familiar with Shark in the Water. This was the one that was the song that was her big hit, and people generally know this one. And it's, it's a good song, so that's why. And so basically that's kind of the idea. It's this very sort of positive musical interlude, but then also the idea that, there's a fin coming for you, which would signify like the end of the relationship in spite of all the excitement and the bombast and everything. And then the next song is called Leave, all in capitals with an exclamation point. And this is another song, I know I keep repeating that the music is very upbeat, and this is true for most of the album, where the music is very upbeat, which is an interesting dichotomy with the lyrics. And especially in this song, because she's singing about how this relationship is going to be a complete disaster, and she's either telling the other person or telling herself from the guise of another person that they should just leave now before things get completely disastrous. But in the same token, there's this very happy way that she's singing it, and she tells either the other person who she's in a relationship with or herself that they're stupid and that they know they have to leave and they need to do it. But the same token, there's this happy beat that goes along with it. So maybe the idea of sort of softening the blow for somebody and maybe telling somebody something in a way that's more palatable to them, and then maybe they don't listen to it, and then she gets harsher in the chorus where she tells the other person that they're stupid, or tells herself that she's stupid, depending on who she's actually talking to there. So that's Leave. Then the next song is called Bottles, and this song is based off of that old song of 100 bottles of beer on the wall, and you keep going down each. I mean, if you haven't heard 100 bottles of beer on the wall, I don't know what to tell you, but you keep going less and less each time, and presumably you would end up at the end with one bottle of beer on the wall, and then I don't know what you would do next, because you've been on apparently an extremely long car trip at that point, if you actually make it to the last one. And so in the chorus of this song, she kind of counts down, listing different things about the person that she's with, ending with, "You're my one and only bottle on the wall." And sort of, it's just kind of playful sort of song. This one's maybe a little bit more positive overall than the other songs, and it has this sort of playful idea of it, which ties in with the theme of the rest of the album, which, you know, is that kind of giddiness of being in a new relationship, but the age and cynicalness of understanding that a lot of times relationships end badly. And I think sort of that idea of maybe being older and still having that excitement of meeting a new person who you really care about, but also not being able to push that cynicism to the past. So this song is a little bit more innocent, I would say. You know, it's based off of an old rhyme and whatnot, and it's sort of got more of that innocence and idea of kind of pushing the cynicism to the side, at least for this song, and focusing in on that person. The next song is called Crying Blood, and it's got a blues progression and an upbeat standard. So there's very happy, almost sounding, because it's such up-tempo song, it sounds almost happy, but it is that sad blues progression as well. And she's singing about feeling like she has, I feel like, a cloud in stormy weather. So she feels like she's sort of part of the storm, but also apart from it. And the idea that on one hand, this person that she's with is acting like they're there for her, but on the other hand, she says, "I'm crying blood," in which case she's very emotional and very attached to this person, and maybe not feeling the same attachment from the person who she's with, which leads to, again, this mismatch and dichotomy of music to the actual lyrics, in which she's perhaps throwing herself into this relationship, but the same token, again, she's realizing that the other person maybe doesn't care for her the same way as she cares for him. The next song is one of my favorites on this album. This song is called Back in Time, and this is about looking back on old relationships, so maybe not the current relationship that she's talking about in the other songs, or it could be after that relationship has ended, sort of looking back to that. And she uses the idea of actually being murdered as a metaphor for being hurt in a relationship, because she says to the other person, she says, "You shot me." And so this kind of idea of like recovering from an injury in a relationship, and she says she went back in time, so kind of being caught up in the memories of that old relationship. And even though it was a bad thing and there was all this wounding that occurred on her end, that she's still drawn to it, but that she doesn't want to be. So this song definitely is a little more mid-tempo, I'd say. It's not as high-tempo. So this could signify that this is the point in the album in which maybe some of the happiness has gone out of the relationship, some of maybe the passion has gone out of the relationship, and she's sort of starting to see it more for what it is and see the negativity in the relationship as well. The next song is called I Love You, and this one is one of the slower tempo songs on the album. And this one is kind of the opposite of a lot of the other songs, in which it's a slow tempo song, but it's about being in love with somebody. It's about a very happy thing. And she's talking about how she loves everything about the other person. So it almost sounds like a dirge at some points, so this could perhaps be maybe clinging still to the good parts of the relationship, but mourning them in the moment, because after back in time and after crying blood, there's a lot of the good has gone out. So this song seems like it's almost about clinging to the good and perhaps mourning the good in the realization that the bad outweighs the good. Or it could be an indicator of a new relationship with somebody different where there's a shift, where there's not that frenetic relationship and it's more of just an indicator of the things that she does love about the other person. Then the next song, there's a shift because the next song is called L.O.V.E, which is obviously spells love. And this song is more, she steps outside of her own relationship to sort of talk about love in general. She uses the phrase she and he, talking about kind of a general person who's in love and the mechanism of that. And it's a very upbeat song with more upbeat lyrics, and she's thinking more about maybe love on sort of the abstract level and how people in general go through some of the same patterns when they fall in love with somebody. And so this is a very more positive song with less of the cynicism. So there's definitely a sliding scale of the cynicism to more idealism that we see going on in this album, and that seemed to be on purpose. It starts off very cynical mixed with that freneticism onward to, we see more idealistic songs like L.O.V.E, which is very, very upbeat song. And then the next song is called Everybody, and it's got a similar idea to L.O.V.E, where it's about what everybody has in common, and it comes around to the idea that everybody needs love. Love is definitely a theme of this album: the good, the bad, the ugly, the cynical, the hurtful, all the different sides of love. And everybody is about how, people think that they are different, but ultimately everybody needs love in some fashion, whether that's necessarily the same. But everybody is looking for the same thing, even if people kind of act like they want to be isolated, that everybody needs some kind of love, and that's the idea of that song. And that brings us to my favorite song on this album, which is also the first song I heard by B.B. Brown, which is the song that I heard of Macy's, which is Crazy Amazing. I don't know what ever really happened with Crazy Amazing. I don't know that it ever took off the way that Shark in the Water did, but I personally even like it better than Shark in the Water. And it's just a really good song. It's very positive. I would say it's like the most positive song on this album, and one of the most positive songs I've ever heard. That definitely, at that time in my life when I was very stressed, going through the whole Paul Gray thing, it is a song that sort of had the power to kind of lift me up, and I think it's done that for many other people who've heard this song too. And this song is about going through a lot of bad relationships, or maybe not really being in a relationship, and then meeting somebody who changes everything for you. And so that's what she describes in the song. She talks about that she didn't think she would fall in love, but then she met this person who was really special to her, and that it happened out of the blue. She just ran into some guy, and then suddenly her whole life was changed, and just a very upbeat, positive, happy song. So if you're not familiar with B.B. Brown, I would definitely recommend starting with Crazy Amazing, because I think it's her best song of the ones that I've heard. And so I definitely would start there. I don't know if it has a video. I'm assuming it was released as a single. It may have a video, but definitely check it out if you haven't already. And then lastly, we have the titular song, Traveling Like the Light, which is another slow tempo song, which kind of, brings us home easy. It sounds like something that, you'd hear on, like radio with Delilah or something like that. And so it's just a very, nice, easygoing, slow song. And you get the idea that Vivi has sort of attained maybe an equilibrium by the end of the album, that she went through a lot of stress in the relationship, but then at the end, she's traveling like the light. She's through it, she went through it, she's past it, she's sort of reached a maybe sort of enlightenment, and she's going to kind of bring us home with it. Overall, this is a very good album. I feel like it had a very cohesive theme. I haven't heard any other albums by Vivi Brown as of yet, but I definitely want to listen to them because this is a very good album, very solid, very good job of ordering songs in a way that the theme was apparent. So I definitely want to check out her other albums, kind of see what she's been doing since then. But so I wanted to kind of, take the album analysis in a slightly different direction. We got a slightly different genre, a little bit more of a recent album. Well, we've done some other recent albums, but, just kind of, I'm open to any kind of recommendations you guys have insofar as albums in any genre that, you want me to take a look at. I'll take a look at them and see what I think. And on the next episode, I'm going to take a look at the 2001 Black and Blue album by the Backstreet Boys, and where they started writing some more of their own stuff, and they had some interesting themes, and AJ went into rehab during the tour. So definitely stay tuned to the next episode of album analysis, especially if you're an old nostalgic boy band aficionado. And at some point in the future, I will be looking at the new Slipknot album. I just want to make sure I give it enough listens to really be able to talk about it coherently. So stay tuned. The new Slipknot album, We Are Not Your Kind, will be a future episode. I'm just not sure when yet. But the next one's going to be Backstreet Boys Black and Blue. So stay tuned. But as for now, as the BSB said, gotta go.